Hello everyone, Vicki Achard here with Nature's Best Art. Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to be painting daylilies. I have them growing in my garden. They're pink, orange, and these beautiful red ones. So let's turn the camera down. I'll show you the drawing. I transferred it on my watercolor Strathmore 140 pound cold press card, or you can just use watercolor paper. And then I have my masking tape to make the 1/4 inch border. And the paints I'm going to be using today for the flowers, the daylilies, are going to be, oh, that's my birdie clock. Permanent Alizarin crimson. For the brighter areas, I'm going to add Quinacridone rose. And for the darker areas, kind of a mixture of that probably. And then the darker areas, I'm going to add burnt umber to probably those two, or just maybe the permanent alizarin crimson. And then the yellow areas of the lily, it's a Gamboge and Hansa yellow deep mix. And the stamens are Gamboge and yellow ochre. It was a little, they're a little darker than the yellow part of the flower. And then the leaves are going to be sap green. The light areas, I'm going to mix Hansa yellow deep with the sap green. And then for the ground, the background area, the sticks and the mulch, I'm going to be combining ultramarine blue and burnt umber, and probably just a little bit of burnt umber here and there. And all these paints are M-gram, my favorite paints. So let's get started. So I'm starting and painting with my ultramarine blue and burnt umber mix, and I'm painting that between the leaves and the flowers. And I didn't put in water first because the areas were quite, kind of congested in the middle there, and I didn't want to get it all spread out on the leaves or the petals. I'm just showing you that I'm just putting it, referring to my reference photo and making sure I get it in the areas where I need to get it in. And now I'm starting to paint in the petals with the permanent alizarin crimson, and I'm using a very light wash of that, which means I'm putting quite a bit of water in the paint at first. And I'm going from petal to petal, and I didn't have to really worry too much about it bleeding into the next petal because I have my fan actually above my head in the summer, and so it dries it pretty well. I didn't have to use my hair dryer between each petal, and so I'm liking that, and that's what I did throughout this whole painting. I put quite a bit of glazes on, so I'm just putting, my first wash on in the background, then the flowers, and then you'll see me doing the leaves. Now with the leaves, I did use water at first because what I wanted to do was I wanted to use the sap green and then drop some of that, it was sap green and a Hansa yellow deep mix. On the lighter colors because of the leaf. And so when you drop color in, you want it to be to spread out quite a bit. And I found that on these leaves, because there was so much highlights on these leaves, like a light color, I used quite a bit of the sap green and the Hansa yellow deep. And here I'm just showing you that I'm using that brush that has a point on it to make the lines on the leaf. It's called a Loew Cornell. And what I found though is that with the Strathmore watercolor paper, it's a card, it dug into it quite a bit. So I did end up changing to my credit card. I'm pretty heavy-handed. So I tried to go as light as I could, but it would just, once you put that, scrape your paper with that or the credit card, it does tear the paper. So you have to kind of, be careful how much, you would scrape it if you didn't want it to look scraped too much. So I just was able to control it better with the credit card. But on my paper that I use when I do my bigger designs, my arches paper, I think I could probably use that. I do use the credit card quite a bit with the arches paper, but I'm going to try this Loew Cornell paintbrush, on my arches, just to see how if I like it on that. It might not tear it as much. So now I'm putting another glaze, and that area there was where the mulch was, and I'm pretty fussy about my all around my border. I try to get it around my border because on a card I like a nice border on my cards. So I make sure I go all the way to the end of my paper, and then I go in now with my flat brush and my angular brush. These are my Artist Loft brushes that I got years ago at Michael's. I don't know if I would ever recommend them, to you starting out with them. All the paint has gotten off the, the handle there, and the brushes are okay. I wanted to use it in this case because those were my smallest flat that I have, and I wanted that to get them in that small area, but and they worked okay. Now this is what I do with my animal pictures also. What I do is I put a glaze on my animals, just like I did here, with the mulch. Then I put the details in, but then you'll see me going in later, a little bit later now, and then I'll blend it in more. I just prefer doing it that way because, it's, I don't know, I just like to look better. I just think it makes a nicer look. So there I am. I'm putting a little burnt umber in there now also, and I'm just blending all the areas in. And I'm really glad that I used the ultramarine blue and the burnt umber together so that it wouldn't be very stark of a black. And I do show you a couple pictures that I did that I really wanted to get a really stark black, and it makes a difference. And I just used the Payne's Gray, and one of them is this one here. It was my Let's Paint a Fall Wagon with Pumpkins and Mums. I did this October 17, 2019. You can see by the wheels and the handle, I wanted to get really black. And that's why I like using that Payne's Gray. And here's another one. It's called Country Road. I wanted the trees very, very dark because it was nighttime. And so that's, one of the times I wanted that stark black look. And that's why I like that Payne's Gray too. So I like to use both, but in this case, I use the ultramarine blue and the burnt umber together to get it a little bit more subdued, look. And also I use burnt umber in my flower petals too. So that's a way of harmonizing your painting, is to use, similar colors in each of the subjects. In this case, it was the mulch and the petals. And so now I'm going in with my second glaze and putting a little bit of a highlight there with my my Kleenex. And so when I paint the petals, each actually petal was different. And so I use my, a lot of times when I paint, I don't look at the reference too much, but this time in this painting, I wanted to get that variation that I saw. I wanted to get the light on the petals that I saw and the leaves. But at this point too, this it looks kind of like this is a hot mess stage where it's just, I have just one glaze on the leaves, and my mulch area doesn't look good. The flowers don't look good. Now, if you can paint past this point and get past this point and say, it's going to be okay. It's just going to be okay. Just, and that's from experience that that your painting's going to turn out okay, and it seems like, the more painters I listen to, the artist, there's several artists, that will say there is something wrong in each painting that I do. And so I've been painting 5 years, and I have heard painters that have painted 20 to 30 years say the same thing. And so when you get done with your painting, and I always think, well, next time. So this painting, what I would have probably done is paint more leaves and less mulch. So you learn along the way, and so just don't give up on yourself, and you know and just enjoy the process. I really enjoy painting this because those flowers, I just love looking at them in my picture. It's one, and in a painting, it's one way to capture um, flowers, because these daylilies, they only last 1 or 2 days, um, and then that's it. So if you can capture something like this, it just makes it so worth it. Now, a little bit of that area where the stamens are, there's also a little area on that petal, and it's called a stigma, where the pollen germinates. And so I wanted to make sure that I didn't paint those areas, because I was going to paint that yellow in there. So I wanted to leave that that white until I got to that area, and then I wanted to paint that um, yellow. Now the flower in the middle was my lightest flower, so I probably, yeah, I did. I remember going in, I'm doing a voiceover. I did this painting yesterday, so I did go in with Quinacridone rose. Any of the lighter areas of the petals, that was what I did with that, with that color. You can tell I'm really taking my time. That means, if you see a painter do that, they're looking at their reference photo. Now, I'm, looking at the reference photo. Again, I want to get those lighter areas in where I saw, and the darker areas. And painting these leaves are fun. They're easy, and I just had a good time painting the leaves. I think because they're so easy. They're just straight up and down. You just got to get your line in there. There was like a little bud of a flower right there next to that leaves that I'm painting there, and that was didn't have any color on it, but it was I wanted to get that little bud in there too. And now I'm starting with my Gamboge and Hansa Yellow Deep. It's a mix. I think I ended up painting this, putting a couple glazes on the yellow parts. Now that Payne's Gray that I talked about, that's black, the stark black, you can buy that at Michael's, but I did not find it online, and I didn't want to go shopping. You know how we don't do things now, because of the pandemic. I don't go shopping, and I didn't find it online. So I ended up getting Winsor Newton Cotman Payne's Gray, and I don't know how I'll like that, but it's going to be interesting. I do have some more of this Reeves Payne's Gray left, and I will be using that still, but I don't know if I like that Cotman Payne's Gray, but we'll see. And now on the flower that I'm painting right now, there was a little bit of the yellow underneath the red part of that part of the flower, so I wanted to make sure I got that in. And so that's what I did. Right now I'm defining some areas, and I'm using my number 4 brush. Basically, the rule that I kind of follow is the bigger the area, the bigger the brush. So when I get into my detail painting, I like to use my number 4 or my number 2, of which I actually have to get another one on my number 2 brush because it wore out actually. And so I'm using an acrylic brush. It's called a Royal BK60 liner. Well, it's actually number 1. It says number 1 for my smaller areas rather than my number 2 creative, my Mimik creative mark. I cannot find those at Jerry's Adorama. I went online. If anyone knows of a number 2 brush that's equivalent to a Mimik creative mark, please comment in the comments below, because they have number 2 Jerry's Adorama, but it's in a set that I bought. I bought the whole set. And I don't see that they sell it separately, unless I'm just not, you know, looking correctly online, you know, on Jerry's Adorama. But I desperately need a number 2. But anyway, I'll find it, I suppose. There's let's see, Dick Blick does not have the Mimics. I haven't tried Cheap Joe's, is another art store online that I buy. I have not looked there, but those are the only 3 that I know of. If you know of any store that has those number 2 brush and Mimik creative mark, let me know, please, in the comments below, or maybe a brush that's equivalent to that. Now there I left quite a bit of the you know, the leaves, and now I'm highlighted, and in that lighter color now I'm starting to highlight some of the petals. And now then after that I put my shadows in that I saw like underneath the flowers, so I wanted to make that a little darker. So I'm adding more of that ultramarine blue and burnt umber to make that a little darker, to get it correct. And I lift my painting, you know, my painting up, so I'm thinking about it, looking at it, make sure I like it, make sure it has what I think is close to the, and right there I put in, you know, close to my reference photo, I put in, I noticed that I didn't put some green underneath that petal there, and I did that. Now I'm using my, it's called a Uniball Signal pen to sign my name. I like to use that when it's dark like that. And this is kind of like my favorite part. I make sure that all the details in my drawing and my painting rather is how I like it. And if not, I go back and I you know, just fix it up. I like a nice border, so I put that area in where I thought it needed it. I did it around my flowers, and I take my tape off, and this tape is working really well. It was kind of hard to get it off, which is a good thing, but tear it on an angle if you're doing this so it doesn't tear your paper, your watercolor card or your paper. See how I tear it on an angle. Then I put some tape in the middle of it, and I took that off. So there it is. Daylilies. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. Until next time, happy creating.